Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Tash Talk. It is Sunday, as usual, for the Tash Talk, and it's the 1st of September. And tonight, my guest is Darren Roebuck, and we're going to be talking about music. We're going to be talking about his life. It's going to be a great show, and we're going to be speaking right after the Sparks.
So, may we start?
So may we start. High time to start. One, two, three, four. So may we start. So may we start. It's time to start. High time to start. They hope that it goes the way it's supposed to go. There's fear in them all, but they can't let it show. They're underprepared, but that may be enough. The budget is large, but still, it's not enough. So may we start.
May we start, may we now start.
So may we start.
May we start, may we now start.
It's time to start.
May we start, may we now start.
High time to start.
May we start, may we now start. We fashioned a wall built just for you. A tale of songs and fury with no taboo. We'll sing and die for you, yes, in minor keys. And if you want us to kill too, we may agree. So may we start, may we start, may we not start. So may we start, may we start, may we not start. It's time to start, may we start, may we not start. High time to start, may we start, may we not start. So close all the doors and let's begin the show. The exits are clearly marked, thought you should know. The offers are here, so let's not show disdain. The offers are here and they're a little vain. A little vain. Now, the music resounds and all the flames are lit. So ladies and gents, please shut up and sit. The curtains of our eyelids lazily rise. But where's the stage, you wonder? Is it outside or is it within? Outside within. Outside within. Outside within. So may we start. So may we start. So may we start. It's time to start. High time to start. So may we start. So may we start. It's time to start. High time to start. Try to start. May we now start.
Bon voyage. Bon voyage.
Bon voyage, and here's to our journey this evening. Welcome, Darren. Lovely
Hello.
to have you on the show. Hello.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. We're going to start at the very beginning, as I like to say in this moment. Tell me a little bit about where you grew up.
Well, I grew up on the Palos Verdes Peninsula, which is basically the southern end of Los Angeles, California, right on the coast. Basically, it's a landmass that is the barrier between the LA harbor and then the Santa Monica Bay, which is like the beach cities and Malibu and all that.
Right. And was that where you were born, Taryn? You were born out that way. Yeah.
I was born across town in I was born in Glendale General Hospital, and
right.
then my first home was in South Pasadena.
Yes.
So sort of like diagonally across LA from where I mostly grew up. Lived there for about 6 months, and my folks were so sick of the air quality on that side of town that they decided to move to the beach.
Right.
And so then we moved to Redondo Beach, California, where we lived until I was about 3. And then we moved to the Palos Verdes Peninsula, where I lived until I was 18 and then came to Colorado.
I know Redondo Beach a little bit because the first gigs I ever did out in LA with Maceo were all actually in Redondo Beach.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it was called The Strand. That's what's coming to me, but I could be wrong. It's
The
a while.
Strand was a cool venue. Unfortunately, it's no longer there.
Yes.
But that was a cool venue well into the early 2000s.
Yes. I know we did one show like then, you know, much more recently. Like we hadn't been in years, decades probably, and then suddenly we went there. But that was my first experience of a gig in the sort of that kind of area, you know, in that area.
Mm-hmm. So you were right next door to where I grew up.
Yes. So I kind of have a picture of it. Great.
Yeah, good.
And the other question, and there are only 2 questions I ask every week to the guests, and I've just asked the first one. The second one is, was there music in your household as you were growing up?
Oh, you bet. Absolutely. And as you see from my song list, I didn't really have like baby records. My baby records were the Beatles and the Allman Brothers, Bread, Crosby, Stills and Nash. That's what was on all the time.
And was this coming from your parents?
Yeah, my parents had my sister and I when they were really quite young, and so that was one of the beauties of having parents in their early 20s was we had hip music.
Yes. Lovely. So, I see very at the top of your list, and I'm wondering if we should kick off with some music almost right away. Right at the top of your list, of course, you have a Beatles song. And I didn't ask you ahead of time, and it's fine whichever way, because I don't know if you put together your list in a kind of chronological order.
It is chronological.
Oh, easy then.
Yeah.
We'll just follow it through. So, would you like to kick off with that track?
Sure, let's go ahead.
Yes. Yeah. Do you want to say anything about it as we do?
Yeah. It was one of my earliest childhood memories of music. And I loved this song. And it was really pretty funny because, you know, it's not about this subject at all, but in my like 2 or 3 year old brain, it absolutely was. And so I liked the song because it was about walruses.
Yes. And there aren't too many of them.
No, but I had a kinship with walruses at that age. Yeah. And so that's why and of course there was like a sort of a walrus picture on the cover of the album. Yeah. And I really thought that was great. Yeah.
I actually think, when I was much older than you, at that point, I still thought somehow when the first few times I heard it, that it was a song about walruses. So we'll listen with all those things in mind.
Yes.
Here we go. And I'm going to remind you and myself to mute.
Of course.
Here we go.
See
Edmund Earl of Gloucester. Keep your knife upon the British Parliament. Oh, untimely death.
Serviceable villain. Duteous to the vitals of my mistress, standards of retire.
Is he dead?
Sit you down, father. Rest you.
It's like a completely surreal song, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Yeah.
This tells you a lot about me since I was raised on that sound.
Yeah. I can see why you might have got into the idea of doing different voices, actually, which I know we're coming to much later on in your story. But
Yeah.
it occurred to me as we were listening. Yeah.
Yeah, but my sister, who also is a trained actress, and I would sit around and we'd be playing Beatles records. We were both like classic 70s kids, so like we were left alone a lot, and with a really cool record collection. And so we would listen to this stuff over and over and over again, and dance around the living room and mimic all the voices and all that stuff. And then it's funny that the two of us wound up in the performing arts.
Yes, but not entirely surprising.
Not really. I know, it's that whole nature nurture thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you do say in your bio a little bit that the arts were a very big deal in your family, so you were very much encouraged.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, we were really like expected to learn an instrument. And anything that involved the performing arts was greatly encouraged. I mean, we never, my sister and I, we never heard no when it came to that stuff.
That's great. And so what was the instrument that you took up as a consequence of being encouraged?
Well, my grandmother started teaching me piano when I was about 5. And that ended when I was about 6 because she really didn't know how to teach me. And a lot of those sessions ended with one or the other of us in tears. And so I stopped for a while. But when I was about 10, my mom asked me what instrument I wanted to learn, and I said the drums, and she said no, guitar or piano. And so knowing how piano went, I said okay, and learned the guitar. As it turned out, we had a drummer down the street from us who was not a good drummer, and then a drummer who lived next door to us right after him, who was actually quite a good drummer. But my mom thought the neighbors had enough of garage drummers on our street. And so that was that. I think she also wanted to be able to park in the garage.
Fair enough.
So it was the guitar. But that was good, because it was easy to start picking up other instruments after that. And we had a piano in the house too. And so I banged around on it a little bit as well.
And did you take sort of lessons in school separately? Did you have sort of extra lessons?
I started taking them privately through a local music store. And I really fell in love with it. It was just the thing that I thought about all the time. And then, finally getting into high school, we had a really good jazz band program at my high school. And they were actually a really strong jazz band to the point that they weren't replacing anybody for the first 3 years I was there in school. So my senior year, I tried out for and got into the jazz band. And that, as you'll see with the Jesus Christ Superstar song later down the list there, that year of being in jazz band and then winding up playing in the orchestra for Jesus Christ Superstar, which was our school production of that, was, I was playing basically 8 hours a week. And it really taught me how to be, what a work ethic looked like in the performing arts.
Yeah, that's great. It's also just a great thing, really, of learning instruments when you're young.
Indeed, and learning in general. I actually read an article recently that was saying how in this one university, I can't remember which one, in the biochemistry class, they were saying that most people here will fail, and most of the people that didn't fail were musicians, because musicians know how to practice.
That's interesting that they put it down to that. So I have read a couple of studies, well, not sort of probably the official study bit, but, you know, the articles about studies that have been done. And particularly when people were, medicine was their major, but they were also doing music, studying music alongside that, they fared much, much better, those students, than the people who had another science. They had a chemistry or biology or something. And the theory too with that is that in music you have to know how to work things out for yourself. You
do, and the consequences are real. You know, if you fail in front of a crowd, that's pretty significant. It's worse than failing on a test. So it teaches you the consequences of really having to focus, but you also have to learn in multiple ways, which is not just mentally, but you have to learn physically as well.
Yes, exactly. So there's a whole lot going on for a developing brain. It's just wonderful, really, actually.
It's essential, I think.
Yeah. Because I always find, and I think we'll probably talk more about this as we cover more of your life, but most musicians I know have a real ear for languages.
Yeah. Well, if you have heard of Broca's area and Wernicke's area, which are like sort of these areas on part of your brain where we actually learn and understand languages in one part and speak languages in the other. And there's a number of studies that show that kids that learn languages or learn music at an early age develop those two parts of their brains more than kids that don't. And actually, if you've heard of the Suzuki method of learning music, that they actually lean into that specifically in teaching their music.
I do know about the Suzuki method, but I only sort of in the broadest terms. That I know it teaches very, very little children who can barely lift a violin or whatever.
Yeah.
But I hadn't realized that that's kind of where they lean towards. And yet what I see, so my first-hand observation of this, a little bit, my mum is 95 and has dementia, not profound dementia, but, you know, on good days it's mild, on less good days it's not. But when, and she has been partially deaf since she was a child, since she was about 6. So her musical abilities are not really strong. You know, she wasn't really good at singing in tune or anything like that. But and she really kind of in the main listened to classical music and some folk music. But if she starts to converse with me or any of her grandkids in Spanish or French, and my Spanish isn't very good, but my nephews and nieces between them speak a variety of languages, she'll correct them. She'll correct their pronunciation. She'll correct their grammar. She'll correct everything. And it's just right there. And I also do find if we're singing songs together, and I try and get her to sing protest songs with me because I prefer that to anything else we're going to sing, you know, sort of songs from the civil rights movement or something like that. It all comes back to her. And
isn't that amazing?
And poetry, fantastic. Sometimes we do Shakespeare across the table and I'll sort of start her off sometimes. What shall I do? And I'll say, I don't know, let's do some Shakespeare and pick a sonnet for me. And she'll pick something and mostly she has the whole thing right there. And if she stumbles a bit and I feed her a word, she's right back in there. So again, it's so incredible how our brains are and how important all those things are that we're talking about, music, the arts generally, all those kind of creative parts, languages, I love that it's a bit of a mystery too, because I think that's kind of gorgeous in its own way, isn't it?
Indeed, but I think there's no discounting the fact that some of our longest well-held memories also have a joy component.
Yes.
Where, you know, and that's another aspect of the performing arts, you know, where we remember songs and we remember poems and we remember stories because we love them.
Yes. That's also true, isn't it? So it all fits together in a rather beautiful way that makes you think, you know, pretty incredible, really. Nature's pretty amazing how in design work.
Amazing how that is.
So, do you remember the first, since you were listening to quite grown up, as you said, and what was the expression you used about not really sort of kids' records, but already listening to really quite adult stuff. Do you remember the first album you bought? Or record or single?
Let's see. Well, I don't know if this counts. I definitely remember the first album that was given to me that was my own.
Yes.
And that was my cousins gave me Led Zeppelin 4 for my 7th birthday.
Wonderful.
And I actually chose a song off of there because that was just such an instrumental thing. There was a few albums or songs in particular that seemed to create these profound like phase shifts in my brain. And that album was one of them. And I remember having it in my room on a little, like, you know, those little, like a portable record player with a single speaker in it. I remember it was blue. And I dropped the needle on that. It was on my birthday. I was feeling very happy. And I heard that at the beginning. And then Robert Plant's voice, "Hey, mama said the way you move." And it was just like, whoa, what is that? And I played the grooves out of that record.
Did you really?
I remember I actually left it in the sun and it warped and I practically cried. But that album shaped me for sure. And yeah, so the sort of, you know, quote, grown up music. Yes. I don't think you can really say that. I mean, my personal opinion is you really can't say that about music. You're just attracted to what you're attracted to. You encounter what you encounter,
that's really
and that's what you get.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in you know, sort of pandering down to what adults think kids' music should be. It's like it should be, give them everything. Let them choose.
Exactly. They choose very wisely too, actually, if you give them everything.
Yeah.
Well, not wisely, that's a judgmental thing too, but they choose very interestingly and quite maturely, I should say.
Yeah,
you know,
I was going to say their intuition regarding what's quote, good music is pretty spot on to what most people believe.
Yeah.
It touches us in different ways. You know, you don't have to, quote, understand it to know, for it to reach you viscerally.
Exactly. One of the beautiful, powerful things about music is exactly that. Actually, it's true of a lot of the arts. We don't need to understand, you know.
To appreciate it. No, you know.
It touches this exactly as you say, you know. There was a brilliant book written in the 60s that, because there were all these new poets coming out and people were talking about how obscure they were and being rather snobby. And there's a very good book, I can never remember who it's by, but it's actually a book about, you know, saying, well, Child Roland to the Dark Tower came, his word was still. Bit of King Lear there. Nobody really knows what that means, but it reaches into us and resonates, you know, and we can go and think about what it, but at the end of the day, it's still our personal connection, isn't it? With all of that, not, you know, not because somebody tells you, you know, what John Coltrane say was doing was really important because blah, blah, blah. It's not in the theory of it. It reaches beyond our heads, which is.
Yeah, it's just the experience of it. Does it feel good or does it not feel good?
Exactly.
And either way, we're connecting with it.
Yes, exactly. So should we listen to a bit of Led Zeppelin? I notice you have two choices up there.
Yeah, the first one I think was Misty Mountain Hop because over the years, my favorite song off of Zeppelin 4 has changed. But ultimately, the one I always come back to and love the most and have never fallen out of love with is Misty Mountain Hop.
Okay, so I think we have to go with, after such a splendid intro, we have to go with that, really, don't we? Let's have a listen.
All right.
Such a great track.
isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all about the feet in that song. You know, it's like the loose, funky kick drum that John Bonham's playing, but John Paul Jones is also playing the bass line with his feet on an organ. And I think there's something about that connection. It's just a little lower in your spine that makes it funky and cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I've known some great is it a Hammond?
Yeah, I believe so. He's playing a Hammond organ that has the foot pedals.
Foot pedals, yes, indeed. I've known a couple of very funky keyboard players who do that. It takes something to really be able to.
You're fully embodying the music when you're doing that.
You really are. Yeah. So at this point, I know we jumped around a bit, but pretty much we've got you in the senior year in the jazz band.
Yeah. So if you jump up ahead a little bit, you know, like I know I had mentioned another Zeppelin song, which we really don't need to. We can skip over, but that was Heartbreaker from Zeppelin 2. And I remember when I dropped the needle on that the first time, I was 15 years old. I'd already been playing guitar for a little bit. And at that moment, I realized that's what I want to do with the rest of my life.
And that was going to be my next question. So you answered it before I even got to it. Wonderful.
Yeah. And so I really started focusing on it. And I wanted to achieve. And I was fortunate enough to be at a school district that really had a strong performing arts department. And I had been in the drama program, which was like an honors drama program, and we actually competed against other high schools. And that really helped a lot in terms of, one, knowing, once again, I was talking about like knowing the work ethic of being in the performing arts. That drama program was sort of run like a legacy football program. Like you were expected to excel if you were in that. And you were expected to put in a lot of hours. This wasn't just just an elective. It was going to be a way of life, at least for that year. And I really got into it. I liked the discipline, and I liked, as we were talking about before, I liked the practice. There's something in my head that clicks with just the repeating things over and over again until you get the nuances down. But then when, as we jump back to what you were saying, to be in the jazz band, because we had such a strong performing arts department, when we'd put on our, plays and musicals, it was really like well attended by the community. It's like, even if, it wasn't just the parents that showed up, it was everybody that showed up, because it was basically pro level productions, but it was just all teenagers that were in the cast. Matter of fact, after one of those shows, our band director pulled us aside and said, "Hey, everyone, I've got someone I want you to meet." And we're like, "Okay, what?" And he's like, "I'd like you to meet Henry Mancini." And we were like, "What?" Henry Mancini came to see our show? Like, that's unbelievable. But, when we'd been in the jazz band for about a semester, I guess, and the band director said, "All right, anyone that's in the jazz band can be in Jesus Christ Superstar if you want, because I already know that you guys are good and I know how to work with you and all that." And then he pointed to me, the bass player, and the drummer, and said, "I really want you guys in this, because you're going to be the backbone of this production, being, a rock opera." And I wasn't thinking much about it, honestly. And then I looked at the other two guys, and we kind of looked at each other and thought, sure, why not? And not really understanding the type of commitment it was going to be. And I like to say that's where my musical education started, because that was some of the hardest music. I mean, it was, and we showed up after school for 3 hours every single day of the week, as well as learning the jazz band stuff. And the three of us were also in a band that was like a regular, we played local parties and stuff like that. So I was playing like 8 hours a week. 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. To the point that even like my forearms were like kind of visibly different sizes from playing guitar so much.
But
the music for Jesus Christ Superstar, I mean, we may as well have been in the Mothers of Invention. It was just so many crazy time changes. And, I didn't really understand it until we finally started to learn the overture, which we actually, by just a stroke of good taste on the director's part, he said, we're not going to look at that until the end. and we got back to that, but there was 36 time signature changes in that one page of music.
Oh my goodness.
Which is just kind of nuts to learn. It's, and that whole program really opened my eyes to what music could be. And also, fortunately, I'd started listening to Frank Zappa about a year before that. So I was starting to get an idea of what something other than just pop music sounded like.
Yes. Fair enough. I feel like we must listen. I know we may be jumping around and we can come back to some songs, but I feel we ought to listen to some Jesus Christ Superstar after that. Will that fit if we
why
go
not?
back? Yeah. It's interesting hearing you talk about it too, because I know when I was in school, we listened to it a lot. I was at boarding school, so we got to listen to, what we liked in our dormitories and things. And as you were talking, I was just thinking, actually, the reason we listened to it a lot was because it is that it's that sophisticated in a way. It's that complicated. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's also that it's not ostentatiously sophisticated. It's not, it's like it all helps in telling the story. And that's part of the brilliance of it. There's not, there's not just stuffing it in your face of, oh, look how complicated the music I can write. It's stuff that really works.
Yes. Yes. It does, absolutely. And the song you chose was The Temple.
Yeah. That was the one where it all started to click for me. Because that's the time signature is 7/4. It was the first time I'd ever played anything like that. The scale that it plays is not a typical major scale or anything. It just all seemed weird to me. I totally didn't. It blew my 17-year-old brain, and then all of a sudden I just got it, and that was sort of a barrier tune for me. That once I got through that, the rest of it all seemed to kind of fall into place.
That's wonderful. Let's have a listen to The Temple.
You won't believe, name your pleasure, I will sell. I can fix your wildest need. I got heaven, I got hell. Hold on up for the prices down. Come on in for the best in town. Take your pick of the finest while lay your bets on this bird of mine. What you see is what you get. No one's been disappointed yet. Don't be scared, give me a try. There is nothing you can buy. Name your price, I got everything. Hurry, it's all going fast. Borrow cash on the finest terms. Hurry now, while some still last.
Should be a house of prayer. You have made it a den of thieves. Get out! Get out!
Suddenly, a lot of screaming there.
I was going to say, it's weird that one didn't get on the radio.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Oh,
pretty intense song.
have we still got some? Ah,
Is it still going?
yes.
It's hard to tell where they end.
It is, isn't it? I don't know if we're just going to have. I think I'm going to pause it there. About to have a bit more singing.
My time
Oh, yeah,
is
now we're-
almost through. Little left to do. After all I've tried for 3 years, seems like 30, seems like 30.
There we go. And then it does end abruptly after all that.
Yeah,
Things like that. Yes.
it's almost like an Allman Brothers song where it ends like 6 times before it's finally over.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, okay. Yes, many's the time. It probably pays more than anything when you're doing radio to know the endings of songs, but you can't know all of them.
Exactly.
Can you? And I tend to check the beginning when I'm going through, but I don't always listen to the whole song. And probably I should be listening to the end to know how the finish happens.
Right. So, yeah.
That they couldn't get back. Tim Rice and Andrew Lloyd Webber, I discovered, couldn't get backing to do it as a Broadway show or a West End here, which is the equivalent of Broadway.
Yeah.
They couldn't get the financial backing, so they made a concept album, and then it became such a big hit. And it was the longest running here, I think, in the West End. It was the longest running show until that got overtaken by Cats.
Yeah. Isn't that funny how like those first people are like, oh no, we can't do that. Those guys were kicking themselves.
Yes. Because
always pays to take a chance, especially on people that are that talented.
I think the combination, I much preferred them as a combination, Tim Rice and Andrew Lloyd Webber, than less so Andrew Lloyd Webber on his own later on.
I would agree. I mean, the music always, of course, stays strong, but Tim Rice's lyrics and his ability to craft a story and make it really emotionally connective he's special in that regard.
He is, isn't he? Yeah. It's I know it's true, and I think it's still. I noticed it's still doing tours.
Oh yeah, I actually saw it here in Denver just this past winter.
Wow! Yes,
it was great.
That must have been lovely for you. Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and actually, I hadn't. After having practiced that music so much, I kind of repressed it. And I really didn't want to hear it. And so that was the first time I'd actually seen that show performed since I had performed it.
Really?
Back in the late 80s. And I still remembered all the parts and everything. My friend that took me kept talking about how she just loved this music and was so connected with it. And she never asked me what my connection was. And I was like, I actually know every single note. Quite intimately, in fact.
Yeah.
But
so
that was funny.
How when you were doing these productions, how long a run did you do? Did you do several performances?
Yeah, I think we did something like 18 or 20 shows.
Wow. Which is great, actually.
Oh man. Yeah. And well, it took us a couple of shows to kindly get up to speed on it.
Yes.
Cause it's one thing to run them in rehearsal, and then another thing to run them in dress rehearsal, and then another thing to do it when there's an audience there and there's no stopping.
Exactly.
And you really got to nail it. And there's like 80 people involved in this thing.
Yeah.
So, we all needed to be able to focus and kind of get of one mind about it. And it took us 2 or 3 shows to where we all felt like we were really confident about being able to do it. And then sort of like, band on tour, the first week of the tour, everyone's sort of stumbling around. And then the middle part of the tour, everyone's just focused and just killing it every night. And that's the way that worked in that series of productions as well.
Fantastic. Did you have any other memorable productions in that?
No, that was the only one that I did because I didn't get into the jazz band until I was a senior.
Right. Yes. Of course, yes. So, yeah, fantastic. Well, what a way to go with that, though.
Well, pretty amazing. I mean,
yeah.
During that period of time, I was playing so much. And also got my first paying gigs during that year as well. And I was like, what? Someone's going to hand me money for doing this? Like, this might just be a great way of life for me.
Yes.
And I didn't really even, since my group of friends was so insular at that time, I didn't understand till I came to college how much it had taught me. Until I started hanging out with kids from all over, and we're, sitting around with our acoustic guitars playing Grateful Dead songs or whatever, that I realized, I'm like, oh, I've learned a lot more than these guys have.
That intensity is wonderful. And the enthusiasm, which you still, talk about it, makes me kind of feel, oh, that'd be great. I think I want to do it.
Well, you should. It's never too late.
No, that's true.
Music will always bring you joy. And there's also always something new to learn. Always.
Yeah. Well, that's the great thing. I think that's another thing. We were talking about languages and, music generally, but actually learning, the process of keeping learning is so important.
It's
me
huge.
Anyway. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I know I'll probably be jumping ahead a little bit by saying this, but one of my first voice acting coaches said the day you don't feel like you have something to learn in this business is the day that you should quit.
Yeah. Because
there's always something. And even, today, every morning I get up, I make a cup of coffee, and I sit down at the piano and do piano lessons.
Oh, great.
And it's part of it's just to wake my brain up, and the other, but over time, all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, I can actually play the piano now.
Yes. Yes.
Hey kids, look at me.
Those things are very interesting, because a lot of what we do in that regard, that repetitive thing, as you were kind of talking about repetition earlier, but actually it is how then we feel comfortable, we feel our way with things.
Sure. And it doesn't matter what you're learning. It's all basically the same type of process, and it makes it less, it makes the mountains seem less huge. And it gives you a lot of confidence in thinking, this is just a matter of a few weeks or a few months, and then I'll know how to do that thing.
Yes.
And you really start to get a really strong sense of self-confidence around taking on new activities.
Yes. Which is what's so great about an instrument, particularly.
Yeah,
you start off trying to blow into a horn of some kind, and you're lucky if you make any kind of sound.
Right.
And then after a while, it starts to turn into something beautiful.
Indeed.
Yeah. Do you want to go back a little bit into your list, because we skipped far forward? But where should we go next?
Well, I mentioned Frank Zappa enough times. We may as well step back to there.
Great.
So,
okay.
My grandfather, after World War II, became a test pilot working out of Edwards Air Force Base.
Yes.
And that was where my mom and her siblings all grew up, was out in the northern foothills of the San Gabriel Mountains, which is basically the edge of the Mojave Desert. And in 1960, I believe it was 1960, he bought a fruit ranch that was out there. And it had been established a long time before then, but and I don't really know his story about how he got it or why, other than it was in a really beautiful place, and he wanted to do that since being a test pilot is sort of a young man's game. So there was a point when he realized he knew that his reaction times were slowing down, and decided that he wanted to keep his feet on the ground when he went to work every day.
Yes.
And then in 1984, he died, and my mom inherited the ranch, which then took me from being beachy surfer kid to being ranch hand.
Yeah.
Pretty big, dramatic life swing.
Yeah.
Although I still lived at the beach and went to school there and everything. But on the weekends and in the summers, I was toiling on the ranch. And I say toiling tongue in cheek. I mean, it was definitely hard work, but it was really pretty fun.
Yeah.
And part of what made it fun was my Uncle Tom, who was basically a guy that never grew up. And he was a 60s hippie, and he played in bands and was just really like a fun guy to hang out with.
Yes.
And he was essentially running the ranch. So for a lot of time, it was just he and I working out there. Running was basically a fruit ranch that also, my grandfather was tearing out the old orchards as they were stopping to produce, it was mostly peaches, and putting in alfalfa hay. So it was sort of like half alfalfa hay, half fruit. And so out in that area, which Palmdale and Lancaster are the big towns. And that's where Edwards Air Force Base is. And for those of you listening that don't know, that's like where the space shuttle used to land. And out there was a little town called Sun Village. And that's where Frank Zappa grew up. And he went to Palmdale High School, which my eldest aunt also went to at the same time, although they didn't know each other. And so there was sort of a Zappa connection. And my uncle loved Frank Zappa. So me, as being 14, 15, 16-year-old, he sort of took it upon himself to be a corrupting force in my life.
Yeah.
Which I appreciated, and we just didn't tell my mom.
Yeah.
And so one of those things was turning me on to Frank Zappa, to the point that like when we were out there in the summer heat, 110 degrees, throwing hay bales into the back of a truck, we would make it a little less toilsome by singing Frank Zappa songs.
Great.
And those were our little sea shanties, so to speak.
Yes.
Or we would start making up what we called Zappa lyrics to other songs and make them, horribly perverse or whatever to try to entertain ourselves. And so the album, he turned me on to the album Roxy and Elsewhere, which was a live album that he recorded in 1973. And actually, which I was just had the most awesome experience of watching Dweezil and his band perform it just a few weeks ago here in Denver.
Oh, great.
Absolutely amazing to see that. To see human beings do things like that is truly extraordinary. I was likening it to being like, because it was the same time the Olympics were going on. I was like, there's nothing these guys are doing that's no different than any of the gold medalists at the Olympics. This is the Olympics of music right here.
Yeah.
But going back to this album was one that, it totally puts me at a place in time. But how like when people ask like, what if you could have one, you're like stuck on a desert island and you could have one album, what would you choose? For me, it's Roxy and Elsewhere. And the song I chose off of it is called Village of the Sun, because it kind of talks about that area, but I also just think the song has a cool vibe too.
Okay. It does, actually. The version that I found, which may mean I didn't quite look hard enough, but is a live version, but it's a few years later. It's from 1978 from the Capitol Theatre. I think it's because it's the official one. And I usually, when I'm looking at versions, because I do this through YouTube, we do this for the show through YouTube, I tend to choose official versions only because I know they'll work across all territories. So because
Sure.
we're straddled between UK, Canada, and the US, and we Jill and I check the links together, and so this is why I picked it, because it is theoretically the official version. And I should tell you, it is about 11 minutes long, so which is cool. We can do Frank Zappa, I'm sure. Well, I'm sure you can be.
Yeah, or we can fade in and out, because there's usually instrumentals, and even
Yes.
even the album version is actually, it feels like one long song, but it's actually
Yes.
3 tunes.
Okay.
On the album. So basically, once the lyrics are done and they're off into musical outer space land, we're probably into a different tune.
All
anyway.
right, we will tail it off.
Okay.
Fantastic. So we're going to listen anyway to Village of the Sun. And just before we do, I just want to say, with what you were talking about for the Olympics, there was Olympics either 1906 or 1908 in Paris, I think. And at that time, they also included, they had Olympians who were artists. So they had painters and sculptors and architects. And
Wow.
and I just thought we should be doing that now.
Yeah, what the hell, Olympic
Yeah,
Committee?
I know.
I mean, yeah, you want to see the heights of human achievement? Yeah, let's bring out the artists too.
And I'm sure the ancient Greeks actually, because it is based on the whole idea of originally the Olympics, in, some kind of similar thing in ancient Greece. I bet they did all of that. They probably had people discussing philosophy too.
Indeed. Indeed.
Yeah. So it wouldn't be digressing from anything. Anyway, we're going to listen to the Olympian Frank Zappa, Village of the Sun.
Going back home to the village of the sun, out in back of Palmdale where the turkey bombers run. I done made up my mind, and I know I'm gonna go to Sun Village. Good God, I hope the wind don't blow. It take the paint off your car and rake your windshield too. I don't know how the people stand it, but I guess they do, 'cause they're all still there, even Johnny Franklin too, in the village of the sun. Village of the sun. Village of the sun, sun village to you. Well, little Mary and Teddy and Thelma tonight, where Palmdale Boulevard cuts on through, past the village inn and barbecue night. Yeah, I heard it ain't there. Well, I hope it ain't true. Where the stompers gonna go to watch the lights turn blue? Where the stompers gonna go to watch the lights turn blue?
in the sun, sun, sun. I mean, going out and back upon Dale, out and back upon Dale, where the turkey farmers run. I never really thought I'd leave. I thought I just want you to believe that I'm going back there with the sun, sun, sun. Village, I got to go back to the sun, sun, sun.